Slightly blurry, but most of it we can read.
Okay. Okay. So we're always going through something, and we always have been as humans, evolutionarily speaking. And so I really like how Western science and yoga, Buddhism, Taoism, the Eastern philosophies overlap. They almost exactly reaffirm each other. And so before we get into like the life hacks that I really want to share with you because they work so well, just a little bit of sort of yogic philosophy around. So in yoga, and I really like the visual of a tree, we have at the roots, we have our higher self, or our soul, or your spirit, or like that loving awareness that you can abide in when you're on vacation and feeling in love and feeling just groovy and you have all your needs met. That part tends to rise up, and we tend to be just awesome and ourselves and on top of our game. That place that transcends stress and anxiety, and that place we can tap into when we're having a really beautiful good time, or through sports and exercise, that place of clear nirvana, bliss, and even just our own inner sense of peace that we may really kind of take for granted, or not. We might not think of it as our soul or our spirit, but in yoga, we're going to go with that. We each have that at our core, and it's covered by layers of life experiences, personality, karma that we're born with, aka genetic predispositions to things. Same. And in yoga, in Sanskrit, it's called the Atman. And in our tree, it's our roots. It is actually the pure intelligence, and it's this. It's actually the collective intelligence that we can tap into, in theory, at any time, and have a very calm knowing and understanding of what to do and how to be, and how to be in love all the time, every moment. That is the goal of yoga, being totally operational from the soul at all times. Is that our daily reality? Probably not yet. Definitely not for me. Hence why we use the tools. Like, most yoga teachers are like kind of crazy and like struggled quite a bit, and so really found freedom with these tools. So think of the Atman as the roots of the tree. Okay, it's a little bit hidden, it's quiet. We really have to do practices to bring it out, to grow our love light. And then there's the trunk, the branches, and the leaves. The trunk, branches, and leaves make up something called chitta in yoga, in Sanskrit. And chitta means your mind, and let's just call it brain, mind, ego. So, and all that encompasses for us personality. It encompasses traumatic situations, the things that have contributed to how we are in the world. The leaves, think of them as how we're expressed to the world. The ego is the part of us that attaches and claims that we are separate in the world from one another. And sorry, I didn't turn off those notifications, but the mind, if you think of the brain as having, if you start to look into neuroscience, the brain, they do different things and they act in different ways, they release different chemicals, and they basically produce a set of thoughts and feelings like a million times a second. And we tend to think that the leaves and branches in the trunk are what the tree is. We don't see the roots. The roots are underground. We don't necessarily see the soul in each of us. We see how we're expressing through our leaves and branches in the world, which often has to do with instinct, prior traumatic situations, habits that we've formed. And we tend to think that the ego, mind, brain complex is us. And that's a bummer, because it's super limited and it sways back and forth, rocked by waves of life constantly. And so the more attention and validation we give to the ego, mind, brain complex, if you will, the more rocky and bumpy, the more neurotransmitters we're relying on to make our decisions. And so that we this primitive and nature and nurture part of us, so that we can get back into the roots. So we're going to talk about those ways. Just this chitta. Chitta is, there's Sanskrit names for the ego, the mind, and the brain, but they all make up this word chitta, the mind. And it seems to be the intelligence. We're like, oh, my brain, that's the intelligence. My instincts must be right. If I'm anxious, that must be the truth. The doom and gloom, the despair and the sorrow that pop up randomly, those must be truth. I rely on those. I trust those, the chitta. It seems to be the intelligence. But actually, the true, pure intelligence is underneath it all, supporting it. So what happens if, like, you cut down your elderberry shrub, or many flowers, and even trees? You could lop off the whole trunk, branches, and leaves, and the root, and they would grow back. So it's a lot like the yogic cycle of rebirth. We don't actually need the ego, mind, and brain. They are a product of our soul. In yoga, everlasting, untouchable, and actually totally perfect and totally secure, and totally in love at all times, part of us. So the more that we can do certain practices to remember that there's something beneath this earth we can draw on that actually grows and supports the rest of us, our physical body, our ego, mind, and brain, the more that we have control over how we feel daily, moment to moment, in this unpredictable and insecure world. And that's another thing in Eastern philosophies all say, is that, in Western science, of course, they say that there is no predictability, the only constant is change, and that's what causes suffering, is needing to try to stabilize and make systematic our resources, our lovers, our friendships, and that attaching to that and needing to constantly be trying to control those things are what leads to suffering. But yeah, the chitta, the tree, is actually a reflection of Atman. Atman is like the oversoul or the higher self. Cool. So that's a little background, and then one more little picture for you before getting into the practices, to sort of demonstrate this a little bit. So we've got the soul, or the Atman, and then we've got like the ego, and we've got mind, brain complex. And let's just do this. In this space is potential for calm, clear, abiding, or being. But the ego and the mind, brain, are constantly putting impulses into each other and into our dominant way of being. They can't actually touch the soul. Oh, here you go. Yeah. They can't actually touch this calm, clear, abiding, but we could just like skip it and be working from just part of our energy, using only some of our brain power and some of our heart power, and operating from just little crescent moon slivers instead of this whole shebang, which would be very powerful. We would have tons of energy and we would be super sharp and uber intelligent, but we skip often the whole soul part, and we operate from memories, processes, neurotransmitter chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol. We allow those to inform our decisions really without second guessing them often, and we're just reacting. And then the ego has attached all these stories, all these victim stories, like this always happens to me. I really need to be someone. I need to do something. I need to prove something. This happened last time, so therefore this will probably happen in the future. Our brain runs simulations. It's like a simulator, and is always predicting the future, trying to predict the future based on the past. That's our animal instinct. That's the oldest part of our brain doing that. And here we are evolving. Our brains are evolving, and we have to sort of use tools to say, actually, to think from here, to act from the soul, and to say, actually, I'm just going to pause and second guess the reaction. And it's really, really hard because we are animals and our bodies get flooded with cortisol, adrenaline, even excessive estrogen, all kinds of different chemical reactions in our body that drive us to do what we do. So I'm going to erase this whiteboard now so that I can make a little list of some hacks. So if you want to take a picture of that, or I will take a picture of it too, and I can send it to you later. Shots. Okay, so I'm going to erase that. That's kind of like the basis for what we're going to talk about next. Okay. Just wanted to mention a lot of this has been inspired by this book that was given to me, but it's called The Buddha's Brain, and it's The Practical Neuroscience of Happiness, Love, and Wisdom by Rick Hanson and Richard Mendius. It's awesome. So they talk about 3 pillars: virtue. These come from Buddhism. So these words are kind of archaic and a little bit heavy. Virtue, mindfulness, and wisdom. So we're going to talk about these tools and techniques that we can use, and we'll organize them into these 3 categories. Pillars of practice in Buddhism: virtue, mindfulness, and wisdom. One thing that is interesting to note is that these kind of go against everything that our bodies evolved to do and use to protect ourselves. So we're basically evolving from the more animalistic human to a human that operates from that soul more, and it takes effort. So they note in this book that virtue, practicing virtue, like I really want to freak out and throw something, but there's children in the room. I'm going to take the high road and take 5 deep breaths and go draft an email about it. Maybe I won't send it. Using virtue wasn't that helpful as we evolved out of Africa or as hunter-gatherers, because you're restraining emotional reactions that once were very helpful, that worked. So we're overriding that part of our brain, and then we're giving more juice and more neural pathway practice to some of the parts of our brains that were the last to evolve, the most evolved. The newest technology in our brains are kind of the smallest portions. So we're asking those to grow and strengthen, and we are overriding some of the old things that once worked. Mindfulness, it actually is decreasing vigilance. So they talk about when you're meditating, and you can hear stories sometimes of yogis. When you're meditating, the world going by, like there's a story about like a yogi getting robbed while he was in deep meditation, and of course he was able to like work some things, but his outer senses were so withdrawn that he wasn't very vulnerable. It's a vulnerable state. So mindfulness is asking yourself to override fear and the instinct to be like constantly need to protect yourself and needing to feel very secure, needing to have a predictable life, and instead of withdrawing within. You've heard of yogis holding their breath, meditating in freezing temperatures or very hot temperatures, overcoming the senses. And that is not something that our animal brain wants us to do. It wants us to pay attention to those needs first and foremost. And then cultivating wisdom, it cuts through and questions a lot of the beliefs that make us feel secure. Like path is better than your science path or your Christian path, or that us versus them need. Wisdom asks us to question everything and to think for ourselves, which again was not that helpful when we were tribal and needing to protect ourselves. So it's kind of cool. We're evolving. We're using these tools to evolve the brain. The old strategies of the old animal brain were about creating separations, us versus them, stabilizing systems, always knowing where your food and shelter were coming from, stabilizing systems in your life, and then approaching opportunities and avoiding threats, the carrot and the stick. So that's what we evolved as animals to operate on. Those old strategies now we're going to push through and come up with some new ways of being that look at long-term rewards. In this book, they talk about carrots and sticks, right? We all know that concept of there's two main motivators. One is I want that carrot, and the other is I do not want that stick. And so our brain has evolved to respond and be motivated and react to those two things. And which one do you think is the more powerful motivator, carrots or sticks? This really surprised me when I read it, but then I started thinking about it. We are way more motivated by sticks. Because as we evolved as animals, if we missed out on an opportunity, a carrot, if we missed the carrot, there was likely to be an apple. In other words, our bodies could get by with missing out on a meal or an opportunity to reproduce. Usually there'd be another one down as the motivator as watch out for that stick, here it comes, wham, and then you're dead or injured. So we evolved to pay way more attention to sticks, which has created something called the negativity bias, which means we're all freaking really negative because that protected us and served us really well. Well, now we're evolving into this next phase of human, and the stick is not what's going to do it. So remember that we have a negativity bias, which means we remember the negative and we take it on much more strongly than the positive experiences. So just knowing that, if you can pause when you are having an angry meltdown, tantrum, or maybe you don't have those, maybe you have more just like a coping mechanism that isn't so healthy. I might be overreacting. I might be feeling more negative than need be, because that's how this amazing brain is wired. You know what? I'm going to evolve that. I'm going to create some new neural pathways. I'm going to ignore that fear of going to the dentist, because it's probably not as bad as I think it's going to be, because that's how my brain is wired to tell me it's going to be really bad. And that way, for so long, we avoided things that would harm us. So that's one tool. That kind of these tricks and hacks. I wanted to read this quote. As we evolve, we are evolving humans. Coronavirus. It makes me think, 20,000, 10,000 years ago, we probably lived in a state much, much more insecure than what's going on right now. And we've evolved to stabilize our systems, to provide seemingly a lot of security. And something like this, we evolved with this stuff. We can handle it. We can handle this level of insecurity, and we can use it because it's intense. This experience that we're all going through collectively, it's an intense experience. You can't really turn down the intensity right now. It's just intense. But what we can do is choose to use this intense energy to evolve and elevate potentially. The other option, only other option, is to use that intense energy to freak out and melt down. Either way, it's going to be intense. So we choose, and sometimes it's a choice every 5 minutes for me. Oh, here I am sort of freaking out again. Okay, 5 deep breaths, back to it, back to work. So the quote I wanted to read is from Yogic. He says, ultimately, happiness comes down to choosing between the discomfort of becoming aware of your mental afflictions and the discomfort of being ruled by them. So it's evolve or be really uncomfortable. Happiness comes down to choosing between the discomfort of becoming aware of your BS, your tendencies, your proclivities, your habits, your genetic stuff, whatever you want to blame on, becoming aware of them, or choosing the option of the discomfort of being ruled by them. And it is not easy. So sometimes it sounds simple. It is simple. Simple isn't easy. We're doing the hard work. Okay. So one of the techniques for sort of the introductory technique for mindfulness is being with what arises. So we're going to start with mindfulness here. See if I can fit it all. Being what arises, non-judgmentally noticing, being with the experience. So when you're having a little moment, your proclivity, your tendency to anger, despair, frustration, etc., one of the techniques, or almost all of them, are going to fall into being with the experience, asking yourself in your body, where do I feel it? So one technique, being with the experience when you're freaking out. If you can get to this place of in the moment going, whoa, I'm in it. I gotta try something. What do I do? Where do I feel it? So one technique of how to be with the experience of whatever your negative, let's call it uncomfortable experience is, you can ask yourself, where do I feel it in my body? Just that, and zip you right into the present moment. I'm not saying it's going to relieve you of any discomfort, but it's a step in the right direction of control, of reclaiming a little bit of power and reclaiming a little bit of control over that discomfort. So where for virtue, a first technique is working with your tendencies. So working with your tendencies, the most basic way we could probably do this is maybe by practicing something like a a 1-second visualization. So, or a 30-second visualization if you can manage. So visualizing a happy place. And I know this sounds simple, but it works. So right now, you can close your eyes if you'd like. Imagine someone or something or a place. It could be your lover, your best friend, your pet, or your plant. It could be a place in nature that you feel compassion for or gratitude for. And this could change every week or month. So you choose a happy place. And so you visualize, it could be a memory, like a really, really nice memory. When you, awesome. And that is something you're going to hold on to. So later we'll take a further step with that visualization. But have a happy place where when your bank account or your relationships start to press your buttons, you could take a second and at least take a deep breath and drop into that moment. So, under wisdom, one of the techniques I wrote down is refuge in truth. So the Buddhist teachings talk about going back to wisdom, finding refuge in truth. So if in that moment, or maybe after you have the tantrum, and that's okay, even after you have the freak out, if you can reflect on it and you can say, like I mentioned earlier, maybe that person didn't mean that. Maybe that was just my perceptions based on my childhood experiences and my filters. And maybe they have different filters, and maybe they have different experiences than me. So possibly, could I maybe be exaggerating or making an assumption? Yeah, possibly that's true. So kind of rationalizing, they call it in Buddhism taking refuge in truth. We're going to call it reasoning ourselves. So giving yourself a reality check. How possible is this in a moment where you're sweating and you're pissed and your face is red and your heart is broken? It's hard, but this is all a process. It's a practice. So they say if you can do any of these after the fact, that's awesome. Eventually, you'll be able to do it in the moment, or at least while you're having your tantrum, you can go, oh, I'm having my tantrum. You may continue to flip out and throw things and sabotage your life. You may not end your tantrum, but while you're doing it, you're going, oh yeah, I'm doing that thing. And that's practice. And then eventually, it could take years or lifetimes, or maybe you'll find improvement in a week. Eventually, you might catch yourself in the moment before you open your mouth and sabotage your stuff, and you might stop yourself eventually. It's not automatic. Just because we're learning doesn't mean that it's easy all of a sudden, but it's possible. So it's goals. Okay, how am I doing on time? Oh my gosh, pretty good. So, any questions right now or comments? So, let's get into some more practices. Okay, so asking yourself, where am I experiencing this in my body? To take that further, there's a lot of practices about mind-body linking, yeah, but also like running or being in nature or Tai Chi. And not just being in nature, but being in nature mindfully, where you can go further with this. You could push yourself through exercise or just through taking mindful, energetic practices. And you could really learn to feel the pain in your body, the ease in your body, and develop a greater relationship with the sensations in your body. And that might seem like we're devolving back to the body, back to the primal instincts, but actually we're connecting with ourselves so that we are cultivating a refuge. we're cultivating mindfulness just by paying attention to ourselves. There's another technique, which is breath. So one big breath. So it's proven that a big exhale calms the central nervous system. It downregulates the automatic nervous system, which is what sweat makes the heart beat fast. So one big breath. Write that down if you're taking notes. A big exhale. It's really the exhale that does it, but of course we got to inhale. So one big. That might be the first practice that I have been able to use in a moment of heightened panic. And it creates one little moment of space between your thoughts and your reactions. So one big exhale, and then move from that 5 big breaths. That's much harder for me to do when I'm upset. But 5 big breaths. If you're only a little bit upset, like if you're driving around and NPR comes on and tells you things, and your heart rate starts to beat a little bit, then you can go, okay, I'm going to turn on some music and I can take 5 deep breaths. And it takes like a full 30 seconds. It's harder than it seems. But if you can commit, okay, 1, all the way out, 2. And don't stop there. Don't let your mind go back to the story. Keep going, 3. 2 more. 5. You're coming back to a different physical, chemical space than you were in 30 seconds ago. It's so simple, but not easy and really effective. 5 deep breaths. That's a tool for when you feel the little sparks of your tendencies and habits that are causing you discomfort in your life. 5 deep breaths. And then maybe we can bring in some wisdom, some reality checks. Okay, breath. It's huge. Another breathing technique is called balancing the heartbeat. There's something you can Google and read books on called heart math. And again, these are esoteric practices that are just actually just science. And so evening the heartbeat.
What are you saying?
Rebecca.
Google what?
Heart math, like mathematics.
Math. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, heart math. There's a whole, Heart Math Institute. So this breathing practice is called balancing the heartbeat. And you're regulating your inhales to your exhales. It actually also happens to be a yogic pranayama practice. Wow. But it's inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4. Several times until you feel your heart rate balancing, because if your heart rate is balanced, your whole cortisol stops pumping, adrenaline stops pumping, and even endorphins start to pump. And so we're animals, we're made chemicals, and the breath techniques, they sound like, I don't know about that, but really these simple are going to produce the good chemicals, oxytocin, endorphins, things that are going to allow you to love yourself, to open your heart, even when you're listening to news about the coronavirus. It's possible. So it's practice. Okay, and then awesome. In the virtue department, there's I could give a whole class on choosing your focus, self-love, positive thinking, and moving with effort into a space of positive thought. So, I'm not going to write positive thinking. We all know that. Positive vibes only. I'm going to write reframe. So these are like, if you've ever gone to therapy, reframing your negative thoughts. So it's a little bit more of an advanced technique. First we had go to the happy place for a sec. Then we have, okay, reframing. Just reframing. You don't have to bring wisdom into it. Just fix it so you make it. Oh my God, I'm not going to make it through this month. I clearly don't have the money. And then you go, actually, money sometimes just flows in from random places. I wonder what's possible there. And you force it. And you force the reframe. My friend, she always does that. She never calls me back. And it's like she doesn't even care. It's just, I'm over it. Actually, my friend probably has a completely different thing going on today than what I'm experiencing. And I know that she really loves me. And, that's just kind of how she is. Maybe I could accept her for who she is more and let some stuff go. It's probably old habits and patterns anyway. So why should I give energy to it? My friend is awesome. I freaking love her. There's so many good things about her. Okay, so reframing it takes some effort. It takes something, you're not going to feel like doing this when you feel hurt, victimized, whatever your tendencies are. So reframing, there's all kinds of info that you can Google about that. And then, and then another a little bit advanced technique that would fall into the virtue category. And it falls into the virtue category because it's choosing positive and loving virtues over fear and scarcity and victim virtues. Is moving from the happy place into more of a deeper meditation around that. So if you're in traffic and you're like, I just need a happy place for a second, go there, take your 5 breaths. And then when you get home, you can cultivate the happy place and make it stronger and more beautiful by sitting still for like 5 minutes. And let's say your happy place is a mountain lake. Maybe it's like a magical imaginary one you've never been to. Okay, in traffic you go, I'm at my magical lake with a waterfall, then there's fairies and chocolate, okay. And then when you get home, you could walk around that lake. You could feel the wind on your body. You could hear the birds or the fairies, or you could taste foods, and you can bring all your senses into the experience so that you can enrich your happy place, and it might change and flow from month to month. So visualizations, all right, visualization, meditations. So happy place meditations, visualizing these positive experiences. And, your brain is going to come in with doubt and negativity and go, that's probably not worth your 30 seconds. You should probably get on the computer and be looking for a job. So we override those. And the result is that we're clearer thinking, and we're actually like more intelligent, and we're tapped more into the roots, the soul intelligence, instead of operating from a reactive place. Okay. Visualization, meditations, and then down in the wisdom area, we said bring a reality check to yourself. You may need to phone a friend or bring books and study programs into it. What they suggest is asking yourself, what is my place of refuge? So these words are translated and they're ancient, but what is a refuge? It's like a sanctuary. And so for some of us, it might be our work. It might be reason. We talk about finding truth. So what is your truth? What makes sense to you? It doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. what brings you into alignment with yourself. So for some people, they're going to go home and like do self-study and practice their woodworking skills. For me, I'm gonna like paint a picture while I listen to one of my favorite YouTubers talk about ascension and mystical practices, because that's me. Even my closest best friends, lovers, and family members, that's not their thing, but it's my thing. So it brings me back into my truth, my refuge, and that's my wisdom. So asking yourself, what makes sense to you? Where is your cup refilled? It could be hobbies. It could be church gatherings. It could be science. I'm not talking about wisdom is not escape and coping mechanisms, but it's self-study and developing mastery in certain areas. So what does that for you? It could be mastering being alone. It could be mastering being a parent. So what fills your cup? Where is your sanctuary? Where is your refuge? Okay, just a few more. So there's some sort of obvious ones maybe. I've mentioned somatic practices, yoga, gratitude journals, and this is a really big one, meditation. Meditation could actually fall into any of these categories, but we're going to put it in mindfulness. So if meditation sounds not worth your time, Google it or check out any of the books in the past 5 years, and this one too, that talk about the billion benefits of meditation to your physical health and to preventing Alzheimer's and to your happiness, mental health, treating anxiety and depression, and actually just being a smarter person. So meditation's amazing, amazing. And what is meditation? It can mean a lot of different things. You could start with 1 minute a day. You could commit to yourself, you know what? I'm never to get out of bed in the morning without sitting up for 1 minute. I'm not that good in the morning, so I'm going to say maybe I'm never going to go to bed without sitting up and breathing for 1 minute. So it's practicing mindfulness, being in the moment without distraction, eyes closed, and going inward for any length of time. And traditionally, you could bring practices like watching your breath, watching your thoughts. So becoming the observer and flexing that muscle, practicing that muscle over time. This gets easier and more peaceful over time, meditation practice. Yeah. Okay, and then just, I think the last one here, the last one thought that falls under virtue is bringing in self-compassion. And to do that really similarly to the happy place is really taking the time to visualize having your own back. So you can do little visualizations like picturing yourself as a child and then hanging out with him or her. Reassuring yourself in that childhood vision that you got you, that you have your back, that you love you, that you adore you, that there's no secrets you have to keep from yourself, that everything is okay, everything is allowed, all the mistakes are okay. So spending time developing self-compassion, again, it sounds kind of like, but actually scientifically speaking, it's going to improve your chemically improve your ability to feel good. So practicing self-compassion, again, focusing on the long-term rewards. This is all like long-term rewards. Like I'm gonna feel better and my quality of life is gonna be better. So a lot of it is bypassing the animal instinct, like eat the cake now, to eat all the cake now, or should I have like a piece every day? It's easier said than done, but if you save it and have a day, then you are prolonging your happiness. And so practicing self-compassion. Yeah, the short carrots are like food and sex and belonging, and we like react and respond to grab those carrots, but instead we're going to skip them and look at the long term and say, bringing in some wisdom and some rational thinking, say, what practices, how can I just pause, restrain myself, and what practice could I use right now to help me bypass these animal drives and a deeper, more meaningful peace. Okay, and then, yeah. From here, that's just the first half of the book. From here, there's these really cool places it starts to go, like with setting intention and finding strength. And there's some like strength meditations you can do to feel more badass and to do goals and then meet them and actually really get into some major rewiring. That's probably going to be another class. I think I covered it all that I had notes on, and I want to offer a little bit of now, just for the last 10 minutes that we have. Really quickly, any questions? All right. Well, you're all still here. Cool. Oh, Laura, I'm really glad you made it in. I heard the Facebook notifications that people were trying to ask me questions, but I am recording, so I can send you the link to the whole class afterwards. Okay, you guys, so to me, breathwork is like these practices are, there's a couple of them that are for emergencies, like a quick happy place, a quick deep breath, 5 deep breaths, a reality check. You know, those are like the quick emergency tools. And then they go deeper into lifelong practices of yoga and meditation, of finding refuge in hobbies and truth seeking, and doing some stronger work in reframing therapeutic techniques and longer visualizations. Breath work, like the emergency overhaul reboot. And you could use it every day, but it's a pretty intense technique. So if you're having, which these times call for those, so if you're having like a lot, if you find yourself using these tools like every 5 minutes, and it's just like, okay, I can't even get to these tools, like the path. I can't get to the longer visualizations. There's no way I can meditate right now. I'm so worked up. I can't do my hobbies or find refuge in anything because I'm in like emergency fight or flight all the time. Then I would recommend calling me and I'll guide you through like an hour-long breathwork session, basically. But what I'm going to show you right now is just a 10-minute, and I'm going to put on some music, some light music. If you are at home and in a place where you want to practice this with me, you can lie down on your bed or the floor. We won't be here for too long, so just get kind of comfortable, but not too comfortable, because if you lay down in your bed and you pull up the covers and you put a pillow under your head, you're going to fall asleep. So they recommend lying down without a pillow under your head, unless you have a physical ailment situation. Then definitely put a pillow under that if you need to. And you could put a bolster under your knees. Just going to lie on back. And you can do this seated, but I'm telling you, it works way better lying down, because again, we're talking about the central nervous system. When you lie down and let a bunch of points of contact on your body be supported by the floor, then your nervous system is cued to relax. So you're going to lie back. You're going to get comfortable. And I bet a lot of you are not going to do this part, and that's totally okay. I never want to do this. It's hard. But if you need a reboot, call me and we can do a session. If you have the willpower and the time to do this yourself, then you can practice this anytime. Put on a song or some music that has a beat. Lay down and relax. And we're going to start to breathe. Start to take some breaths. Yeah, a little bit deeper, fuller breaths. You were just a few minutes ago. Lie down, taking deeper, fuller breaths. Imagine breath, releasing some tension. And just know this doesn't take too long. Just silently affirm to yourself, there's nowhere to be, nothing to be doing, nothing more important than building my own inner resources. So as you lie back, as you tap into the rounds of breath, the breath like waves through your body, all the way in, all the way out, releasing tension with each exhale, just melting into your inner self, the roots, the soul, Atman, letting the mind release and relax, letting the ego release and relax. The whole idea behind breath work, keep breathing full and deep. The whole idea here is that we're going to step aside from the mind-brain complex and go into a little bit of a hypnotic theta state. Kind of like taking a Xanax or something like that, but just naturally. We're just going to trick ourselves into a hypnotic state where we can escape the monkey mind, the habitual nervous thinking. So let's take maybe 10 more deep breaths, just affirming to yourself, I'm ready and willing to drop into my highest self. I'm ready and willing to let down my guard, to drop into my safe space. All right. If you haven't yet, start to let your jaw float open and start to draw the breath in and out through your mouth. So let the breath start to move in and out through your mouth. This is all temporary. And now try with me to start to take a double inhalation. So basically, we're just going to take one more sip of air at the top of the inhalation, and then one more exhale at the bottom of the exhalation. Good. Keep going. If you feel lightheaded, you can just slow it down. You can even completely stop for a moment. But if this is feeling all right, take a little bit deeper breaths now, all the way in, maybe that double inhalation, the first part into your belly, the second part into your heart, and then out. And maybe at the bottom, another little, and then in right away, out, in, out. You can let go of that two-part exhalation, but keep the double inhalation into your belly, heart, and then all the way out with the exhale. you haven't yet, join me in picking up the pace and the depth of the breath. And let the exhale completely be the mechanism of letting go completely. The exhale, I am willing to let go of the thinking mind and give control to my heart and to my body and to my breath. With each breath, I improve my health. I improve my mental state. With each breath, I tap deeper and deeper into my higher self. And keep going with your breath. We're just going to do about 20 more rounds of breath. Find that you have fallen asleep or come out of the breath, just join me for another 5 full rounds of deep, full breath. Good, 3 more. Good, and then after this next breath, the next time you inhale, get a really full, juicy, complete inhale and hold the breath. All the way in and hold the breath right where you're there, laying on the bed or the floor. Hold the breath and feel into the sensations of this experience. Feel into your body. Feel every cell of your body supercharged with your prana, with the wisdom of your body, the wisdom of your heart. Hold for another 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Exhale, let it go. Okay, we're just gonna do one more little round, just about 20 breaths. So join me again, eyes closed, backs. Let's take 20 breaths together. You don't have to count, I'm counting. Double inhalation, belly, heart, and then all the way out. On a day when you have some intense fear or anger, go ahead, pick up the pace, effort into the breath. Let the energy build, let the breath take over from the mind. You can even release all thoughts. Intentionally giving some effort to just the last 10 breaths here. Stay with it, feeling into the tingling sensations in your body, feeling into any fear or doubt that arises as you breathe. Just 5 more. And just 3 more. Deep, quick breaths. Strong, full breaths all the way out. Good. Take a last full breath in here and hold the breath in and hold. When you release in about 10 or 15 seconds, you're going to fall away into deep relaxation. Shavasana, in a place of bliss. Sometimes this place is a place of no breath, or maybe just a natural breath. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, exhale, release completely. You may be feeling cold or warm. Release your breath and fall into wisdom of your body, loving and blissful space of your heart. For just 1 minute Shavasana, let your imagination take you to that happy place, that place in nature where you feel completely at home and at ease. Let your imagination guide you into this place and notice the details of your surroundings. Grass, sunshine. Notice the temperature. And notice the feeling of ease, celebration. Notice the smile in your heart as you lie here, exploring with your imagination your own happy place. Concentrate on the feeling of receiving abundance, strength from your higher self. Continue to receive the gifts of deep peace, heightened intelligence, beauty, loving awareness. Enjoy. Affirming to yourself, it is my birthright and my natural state to enjoy all the experiences of this life. Through the ups and downs, I always have this deep peace, reassurance to draw upon. Sometimes in breath work, you might find to shed a tear. You might be inclined to laugh or giggle. All of these ways we can release the tension that we've stored and held on to for lifetimes. You're welcome to stay right there, lying down in your space, continuing to journey with your imagination. Just remember that the imagination is a high technology, something to be called upon and used more frequently. Our anxious minds, our victimized hearts, memories of pain and suffering that we have a negativity bias toward remembering. Those were the old ways, and we are evolving humans in control of choosing every moment. Can take practice. Allow yourself to receive the joy, the deep peace, and the healing that comes from your own self, your own higher self, your roots, your soul, always available. The more that we practice them, the more that we recharge, the more that we talk ourselves down from habitual pain and suffering, the more we can live in this freedom that is our birthright. So we're just unwinding. We can take our time with our process, continually forgiving ourselves and gently laughing and smiling at our childlike selves. Just enjoying the process, the ups and downs. Thank you all so much for joining today. Just stay in Shavasana for as long as you like. Receiving and receiving and receiving. Filling your own cup. Reclaiming your power to provide for yourself all that you ever need. I'm gonna turn off the meeting now, and you're welcome to reach out with any questions. And I'll post a link on Facebook if you want to email. You can do that too. Don't need to think about that just now. Thank you so much. I love you all. Thank you. Thank you, Linz. Thank you, Laura. I love you too.